The desert night was suffocatingly dark, the wind screaming through jagged canyons, while bursts of machine gun fire ricocheted across the stone cliffs. An American SEAL unit lay trapped, their ammunition nearly spent, dust-covered faces streaked with blood scanned, the shadows for an escape that didn't exist. One soldier rasped under his breath, "This is it! Nobody's coming. We're already ghosts." And then, when all hope had died, a single rifle crack shattered the silence from a far-off ridge. The valley froze in stillness. An enemy fighter collapsed instantly. Have you ever felt certain the end had come, only for one moment to flip the story on its head? Where are you watching this from? If it were you in that canyon, what would hit you first? Fear, relief, disbelief? Drop your thoughts below. And remember to subscribe so we can continue this unforgettable journey together. Camila Reyes, 27, carried auburn hair pulled into a tight, practical bun. Her compact frame radiating strength that belied her size. Raised in New Mexico's rugged mountains, she had spent countless hours hunting alongside her father across merciless cliffs and brush. Those treks taught her how to read shifting winds, practice endless patience, and learn that accuracy outweighed speed every single time. When she joined the service, her dream was set, becoming a sniper. But her superiors had other ideas. "That Barrett's too heavy for you, Reyes." Her commanding officer scoffed during her first week. "Maybe stick to radios and support work." The nickname followed tag-along, someone destined to trail behind real soldiers but never become one. At the rifle range, when Camila carefully fine-tuned her scope like an artisan perfecting his craft, her male counterparts jeered. "Trying to hit the moon?" they joked. "Sweetheart," they teased, while she ignored the voices and focused on her work. During mission briefings, when she suggested setting up an Overwatch on the northern ridge towering above the target zone, laughter roared through the room. "That climb will finish you before the enemy does," someone quipped from the back. "Reyes, rear support only," Sergeant Castillo would declare, shutting her down before her ideas could land. Night after night, while her teammates downed beers and swapped war, stories that stitched their brotherhood tighter. Camila disappeared into the training field. She lay in the cold sand, drilling her breathing rhythm, refining her trigger squeeze, and studying the invisible math of distance, wind, and bullet drop. In those lonely hours, she heard her father's voice from their last hunt together. "Micha, you won't need many shots in life, but the few you take must matter above all else." Rejection had burned away impatience, leaving behind a tempered calm inside her like steel forged. Through fire again and again, each dismissal, each maybe next time, stick to what you know, only added fuel to her resolve. She devoured every tactical manual she could find. She memorized ballistic charts across ammunition types. She trained herself to gauge distances, without a rangefinder and calculate wind. Drift with nothing but instinct and math in her head, Camila Reyes was constantly underestimated by those who had never truly tested her skills. But she realized something they hadn't. Being overlooked was the most powerful tactical edge anyone could hold. While they saw a petite woman pretending at soldiering, she was quietly refining herself into a precision tool meant for one purpose, delivering flawless fire in the moments where accuracy drew the line between life and death. The shift wasn't visible to the casual eye. Camila carried out her assigned tasks without complaint, kept her gear in flawless condition, and never contested the orders that pushed her into support roles. But beneath the surface, something sharp, patient, and dangerous was forming. Her teammates assumed her silence meant surrender, that she had accepted their view of her limits. They had no idea she was preparing for the instant when those limits would collapse under real combat, and that moment was closing in far faster than anyone imagined. When the orders dropped for a hostage rescue deep in hostile ground, Camila went over her equipment with the same steady focus she brought to everything. Her Barrett was spotless, perfectly zeroed and primed. More than that, she herself was ready to prove what they had been blind to all along. The briefing outlined moderate resistance and a clean operation. Both assumptions were dead wrong. What lay in that desert valley would test every belief they held about warfare, unity, and the cost of disregarding hidden strengths. Camila Reyes was about to prove that the quietest person in the room might be the most lethal when battle demanded it. On paper, the mission looked simple. Extract 3 American engineers taken, hostage by insurgents in a remote village compound. Intel suggested around 20, lightly armed fighters with basic rifles and poor coordination. The truth was devastatingly different. As soon as the helicopter touched down in the valley, the night exploded with heavy fire from entrenched positions that spoke of months of preparation and trained discipline. RPGs tore through the air, detonating against canyon walls with unnerving accuracy that betrayed advanced targeting skill. What should have been a swift 20-minute operation spiraled into a savage fight for survival against a force the size of a battalion lying in wait. The SEALs fractured into 3 fire teams, scrambling for defensive positions in the ruins of abandoned structures. But overwhelming numbers and coordinated strikes crushed them into a shrinking circle. Cover dwindling, escape impossible. The radios told the truth no one wanted to hear. Alpha Team pinned, multiple heavy guns locking them down. Bravo taking fire from the ridgelines, casualties mounting fast. Charlie Team RPGs incoming from 3 sides. Sergeant Castillo's voice tore through the static, edged with desperation. Base, this is Talon 6. We're surrounded and vastly outnumbered. Ammo's almost gone, requesting immediate evac. The reply shattered what little hope remained. Talon 6, negative on air support. Weather prevents helicopters. You're on your own until sunrise. Sunrise was 7 hours away. Camila Reyes sat with the comms team. Her Barrett balanced across her knees, listening to her brothers in arms, being pressed harder and harder by an enemy that had engineered the perfect trap. One soldier whispered what all of them already knew. We won't last 30 minutes at this pace. The math was merciless. 22 Americans against more than 200 entrenched, well-armed fighters who commanded every advantage. Inside Camila, a storm of conflict raged as fierce as the battlefield outside. If she obeyed orders, she would stay back, manning the radio, forced to listen while her team was slowly torn apart. If she defied protocol, she could attempt the climb to the northern ridge she'd argued for in mission planning. The position dismissed as impossible. But defiance meant gambling everything on unproven skills that had never been tested under fire. Fear slammed into her in waves. What if she missed critical shots? What if enemy snipers spotted her? What if trying to help doomed them faster? But anger hardened her resolve. She remembered every laugh, every dismissal, every sneer that told her she didn't belong in combat. And then her father's words cut through the chaos. When everyone says it's over, Maija, that's when your shot matters most. Camila's decision crystallized. She pressed the radio one last time, communications maintaining position. She reported the necessary lie. Then she snatched up her rifle, extra magazines, and rangefinder, beginning the brutal climb toward the ridge that might be the only thing standing between her, teammates, and certain death. The ascent was exactly as difficult as they had all mocked it would be, steep, exposed, and brutally difficult to navigate, while carrying 35 lbs of sniper equipment. Sharp rocks tore at her hands and knees. Desert wind carried the sounds of intensifying combat from the valley below. Each meter climbed represented a question that might determine everyone's fate. Am I climbing toward their salvation or just postponing the inevitable? But Camila had studied this terrain during mission preparation. She knew every rock formation, every potential route, every angle that would provide concealment from enemy observation. As she climbed, automatic weapons fire continued echoing from the village. Each burst meant her teammates were still alive, still fighting, but also still dying one by one as their ammunition dwindled and enemy pressure increased. Camila reached the ridgeline just as Castillo's voice crackled through her earpiece. All units, prepare for final defensive positions. We're almost out of options. She settled into a prone shooting position among the granite boulders, her Barrett rifle steady on its bipod. Through her scope, the village spread out below, like a deadly chessboard, where her teammates were trapped in an impossible game. She could see every enemy position, every muzzle flash, every tactical advantage that the insurgents had established through careful planning. But she could also see something else. Opportunities that ground-level perspective made impossible to identify. Camila Reyes had spent her entire military career being overlooked and underestimated. Now, for the first time, being invisible was exactly what the situation demanded. Her finger found the trigger, and she began the most important shooting of her life. 22 lives depended on her ability to deliver precision fire from a position that everyone had dismissed as tactically impossible. The ridge that was supposed to be too difficult to reach had become the only place where victory was even remotely possible. Camila whispered the same prayer her father had taught her before every hunting expedition. Make it count. Then she began systematically changing the course of a battle that everyone had already written off as unwinnable. Castillo was reaching for his radio to initiate surrender negotiations when the impossible happened. Crack! A single rifle shot echoed across the valley from high above their position. The heavy machine gun that had been systematically destroying their defensive perimeter went silent instantly. Every SEAL in the valley froze in stunned disbelief. Who the hell fired that? Castillo demanded. spinning around to identify the source of salvation that couldn't possibly exist. Before anyone could respond, another shot rang out, then another. The RPG unit preparing to finish. Them off broke apart. When their gunner dropped without warning, a hidden sniper's nest that had been punishing. Any movement went silent as its shooter vanished. The mortar crew adjusting fire on their position froze when their spotter collapsed mid-call. At first, Castillo and his men believed they were getting cover from an entire platoon of Allied snipers, scattered around the valley, but that was impossible. They were the only American forces within 100 kilometers of this battlefield. Through his binoculars, Castillo scanned the northern ridge, desperate to locate the source of this impossible lifeline. What he saw challenged every assumption he had about tactics and human capability. Camila Reyes lay perfectly blended into the granite boulders, her Barrett rifle anchored as steady as the stone itself. One eye pressed firmly to the scope, her breathing slowed. Her entire existence narrowed to the lethal mathematics of precision, shooting under combat conditions. The woman once dismissed as just along for the ride was dismantling a battalion-sized enemy force with ruthless efficiency. Camila wasn't firing blindly. Every shot carried deliberate purpose. First, she cut down the machine gun crews suppressing American movement. Next, the RPG teams who threatened to obliterate their defenses. Then the spotters and radio operators orchestrating enemy fire. Finally, she worked through the officers coordinating the attack. Each pull of the trigger tipped the scales further in favor of the trapped Americans. But her precision wasn't the most shocking thing. It was where she was firing from. Camila had scaled a sheer cliff under cover of darkness, hauling heavy sniper gear to a perch no one else considered reachable, a position granting vision to threats invisible at ground level. Castillo tracked her movements through his scope. She never fired twice from the same spot, shifting seamlessly among shadows and jagged stone, denying enemy counter-snipers any chance of retaliation. She flowed across the terrain as though she belonged to it, vanishing and reappearing with uncanny skill. Her calm voice broke through the chaos on their radios. Guardian Angel to Talon 6. Shift northeast toward the compound. I'll keep eyes on you. Castillo realized he was watching history in the making, an example that would be studied in military academies for decades. One operator was rewriting the outcome of an entire battle through pure mastery of marksmanship, under crushing pressure. With each shot, the momentum turned. Enemy fighters, once certain of victory, fell back in confusion. Their coordinated assault splintered into scattered resistance. As leaders were eliminated one after another, Camila's steady, methodical takedown of high-value targets was destroying the backbone of the enemy strategy. But her mission wasn't complete. Through her scope, Camila locked onto the ultimate prize, the enemy commander himself, desperately trying to rally his shattered forces for a last assault against the cornered Americans. The distance stretched nearly 200 meters. Wind whipped unpredictably through the canyon, shifting with every gust. The target moved erratically behind scattered cover, fully aware that a sniper's eye was locked on him from above. It was the hardest shot of her career, the kind of challenge that could break even the finest marksman in the world. Camila steadied her breathing, worked out the math of bullet drop and wind drift, and waited for the fraction of a second when her enemy would reveal himself. She had only one chance. If she failed, the commander would triangulate her position, unleashing concentrated firepower to erase her. Worse, her team would lose the only edge keeping them alive. 22 lives balanced, on a single round flying across a kilometer of turbulent desert air. Camila whispered the same words her father had drilled into her before every hunt. One shot, make it count. The Barrett slammed into her shoulder as the round exploded from the barrel at nearly 3,000 feet per second. 1,200 meters away, Castillo watched through his binoculars as the enemy commander crumpled, his radio tumbling into the sand. The fighters who had pressed forward with confidence now broke in fear, scattering across the desert after watching their leader fall to an unseen hand. Within minutes, the valley was silent. Only the wind whispered through ruined walls. Camila Reyes had saved 22 lives with fewer than 30 precision, shots from a ridge most believed unreachable. When the extraction birds arrived at dawn, Castillo's eyes never left the northern ridge where salvation had come from above. The woman his men had doubted for months had just written herself into military history with unmatched marksmanship. But more than that, she had shattered the false limits they had placed on both tactics and people. Camila boarded the helicopter without drama, her rifle slung across her back, her expression calm and professional. Yet Castillo noticed something different. Her eyes no longer carried doubt. Instead, they held the quiet certainty that comes only from proving yourself when the stakes are absolute. Dawn spilled across the desert as the helicopters touched down at Falcon Base, rotor wash kicking up sand clouds that clung to uniforms. Camila stepped onto the landing strip, her gear scarred by dust and dried blood from the brutal climb. The Barrett hung at her side as though it were part of her body. Word of the impossible rescue had already spread through channels, faster than radio chatter could carry it. Troops emerged from barracks and command posts drawn by the story of a lone sniper who had saved an entire SEAL team from annihilation. The same soldiers who once mocked her training now stood in silence, respect etched into every face. Castillo moved toward her first. His expression was heavy with gratitude, guilt, and a respect that words could barely touch. He opened his mouth. "Reyes," he began and then stopped. "How do you thank someone for reshaping the very boundaries of tactical reality?" Camila met his eyes with unwavering steadiness. "Sergeant, what you accomplished out there, I've never witnessed anything close to it. The accuracy, the positioning, the battlefield intuition." He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "We owe you everything." Before Camila could reply, movement rippled through the assembled. Personnel as Colonel Harrington stepped out from the command center. Within naval special warfare, the colonel was regarded as a legend, known for his unyielding composure and near impossible expectations. In 15 years of service, most could count on one hand the occasions they had seen him give approval to anyone's actions. He advanced directly toward Camila, halting exactly 3 feet away in accordance with protocol. The entire base seemed suspended in silence as the two figures faced each other under the desert sun. Then Colonel Harrington performed an act that overturned every assumption about military acknowledgement. He lifted his right hand in a sharp, formal salute and honor, reserved only for feats of extraordinary courage that surpassed all normal standards. The assembled operators froze, stunned. SEALs who prided themselves on composure under any situation stood with jaws slightly parted. Sergeant Castillo removed his cap, his expression carrying emotions he had never expected to feel. Camila returned the salute with perfect precision, her stance rigid, her face carrying the weight of years of discipline and resolve, finally met with rightful recognition. When both hands lowered, Colonel Harrington spoke with a voice that carried across the hushed compound. "What you achieved last night will be examined in naval special warfare, schools for generations to come." He paused, allowing the magnitude of his words to sink in. 27 confirmed enemy kills at distances beyond 800 meters, in darkness under intense pressure, with 0 friendly casualties. This is the exact definition of exceptional marksmanship in combat. The crowd began to stir in admiration, but the colonel raised a hand for continued quiet. More importantly, this mission shows that tactical ingenuity and personal drive can conquer the impossible when executed by someone with the right training and absolute commitment. He gestured toward the northern ridgeline, faint in the morning haze. "The position you identified and utilized had been dismissed by seasoned planners as unworkable. Your success proves that conventional assumptions often create the very limits they pretend to avoid." Camila finally spoke, her tone firm and resolute. "Just fulfilling my duty, sir, using the training you gave us and applying it when the moment demanded." For the faintest instant, Colonel Harrington almost smiled, an expression so rare that many would remember it for the rest of their service. "Reyes, your designated assignment was communication support and rear security. What you accomplished redefined what was thought possible for small unit tactics." Sergeant Castillo stepped forward, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced with sincere respect. "Reyes, I owe you an apology. We all do. We failed to acknowledge abilities that could have been used far more effectively during this mission." Camila glanced at the faces surrounding her, faces that had once shown doubt and condescension for months. Now those same faces reflected something entirely different. The respect earned from witnessing excellence in conditions where survival depended on it. "Apology accepted, Sergeant. But we're a team, and teams stand by each other when it matters most." From that day on, nobody ever called her tag-along again. News of the Desert Ridge sniper spread through military channels like wildfire, though operational security kept details out of the media. Within the armed forces, however, Camila Reyes became a legend. Her story retold across training facilities in multiple branches. The core account, a lone sniper saving an entire SEAL team with unmatched precision from an impossible position, became powerful proof that capability often lies in unexpected places. waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Female recruits entering the military heard Camila's name during orientation briefings, not as cautionary reminders about limitations, but as living evidence that excellence could transcend all expectations. If Reyes can do it, so can we soon became an unofficial motto across women's military communities. Yet Camila herself stayed humble, uninterested in the spotlight. 3 days after the rescue, Sergeant Castillo found her at the rifle range, steadily practicing precision drills with the same discipline as always. "You know you don't have to prove anything anymore," he said, settling beside her firing position. Camila adjusted her scope and lined up another target. "I'm not here to prove anything, Sergeant. I'm here to keep my edge." Castillo watched as she delivered 5 rounds into a 1-inch grouping at 600 meters. "For what?" "You've already shown skills beyond anything we've ever seen," Camila reloaded calmly. "Because next time the conditions might be harsher, the wind stronger, the range farther, the stakes higher. I have to be ready for whatever comes next." At that moment, Castillo realized something profound about the woman beside him. Camila's extraordinary results weren't the product of luck or just natural talent. They came from relentless self-discipline, driven by personal standards that went far beyond anything the military had ever required of her. While many were content to meet only the minimum standards, Camila Reyes had been chasing mastery. The respect she earned wasn't tied to a single night of extraordinary shooting. It reflected the countless hours of preparation that made that night possible. 6 months later, Camila received orders to attend the Advanced Sniper Instructor School, becoming the first woman ever assigned to that program. Her last evening at the base was marked by an informal gathering, where teammates finally voiced gratitude they had long struggled to express. Sergeant Castillo lifted his coffee in a quiet toast to Reyes, who showed us that the most dangerous mistake is underestimating the person right beside you. Camila glanced around the room at the faces that had become familiar through hardship and mutual respect. "I'd like to say something," she began, setting her cup down. 6 months ago, I was frustrated, feeling overlooked and underestimated. I thought the issue was that you needed to change your opinions about my abilities." She paused, weighing her words carefully. "But on that ridge, I realized something important. I wasn't climbing up there to prove anyone wrong. I climbed because it was the right thing to do. Recognition came later, and yes, it matters, but it was never the reason." Castillo nodded thoughtfully. "Then what was the reason?" Camila answered without hesitation. "Being ready when readiness mattered. Having skills that could save lives when those lives depended on it. Everything else was secondary." Her final words became part of Falcon. Base's culture: don't train to silence doubters. Train to be prepared when preparedness decides everything. In time, news outlets reported versions of the story, though operational security kept details vague. Still, the central narrative, a woman saving her unit with impossible precision, became a lasting symbol that talent could rise beyond traditional boundaries. Young women considering military service began pointing to the Ridge Sniper as proof. Their goals were within reach, not out of reach. But the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected place. The northern ridge where Camila had made her impossible shots was officially named Overwatch Point Reyes on military maps. Future units operating in that region would know the rocky outcrop had once been the site where a sniper saved 22 lives with flawless shots from a position experts had dismissed as impossible. Have you ever seen someone underestimated, only to rise and save everyone? Share your story in the comments. Because sometimes the quietest warrior carries the loudest victory. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories, reminding us never to overlook the potential in those around us.